My investigation began at about 7:30 in the morning of the 6th of April. I was keen to interview the woman who had first alerted the police to the gunshot. Now, I read somewhere that the person who first calls the police turns out to be the killer in about 80% of all murders. Although, I didn't think that was a fact in this particular case. There's a row of cottages quite close to the churchyard, and Mrs. Parker's cottage was on the end, the one closest to the vicarage, and I wanted to get her story. However, my detective sergeant had identified another potential witness. A Mr. Rufus Walker had been walking his dog around the churchyard boundary at the same time. I decided it might be best to interview these two together. Oh, and you might need to use your imagination just a little bit in my reenactment. Mrs. Parker, Mr. Walker, I'm Detective Chief Inspector Butler. I believe you both heard the gunshot last night?
Oh, yes, we did. Bang, bang.
There were 2 bangs.
Were there?
No, I'm asking you. You heard 2 bangs, did you?
Oh, yes, one after the other. And I thought, well, that's never right, because we've not had bangs in the village before. Well, not for a very long time.
And then, after the shots, did you see anything suspicious?
I certainly did, Constable. A man ran from the vicarage. He had red socks, same colour as my car, same colour as my dressing gown. No, Mrs. Parker, there were 2 men. The first drove off in a Jaguar, and the second one ran to Mrs. Parker's house and stole her car.
What? Hang on a minute. What? He stole your car?
Did he? Oh, yeah, that's right, he did. Smashed the window and drove off right in front of me. He had red socks.
Yeah, but what about his face? What did he look like?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. I couldn't take my eyes off those socks.
Did you get a look at him, Mr. Walker?
Not really, no. Millie was rather jumpy.
Millie?
My dog.
Oh, right. Did you see anything else? Anything out of the ordinary?
Oh, yes. I saw Longbottom peeping out of a bush.
You saw what?
Councillor Longbottom hiding in the churchyard with a pair of binoculars round his neck.
Did you indeed? Well, thank you both. Councillor Andrew Longbottom was a well-respected member of the Hopton St Mary Council. He was a former mayor and a pillar of the community. But he was also one of those people who, as soon as you meet them, strike you as rather arrogant. He was, I felt, a bit too full of himself. Now, if Mr. Walker's account had been correct, hiding in the churchyard at that time of night with a pair of binoculars round your neck is very strange behaviour indeed. Longbottom became my number 1 suspect, and I decided to lean on him pretty hard. Councillor Longbottom, you may have heard there was a murder last night at the vicarage. Would you mind telling me where you were at about 7:45?
7:45, you say? Oh, yeah, I was at a council meeting.
Oh, you were at a council meeting, were you?
Yeah, well, that's what I said. You're not doubting the word of a former mayor, are you, Inspector?
Oh, no, sir, I wouldn't do that. So, who was at this council meeting then?
Well, the council, you blithering idiot. Who else is going to be at a council meeting, man?
Oh, yeah, silly me. Problem is, though, we checked, you see, and there was no council meeting last night.
Ah.
A witness saw you hiding in the churchyard. Can you explain that, sir?
Oh, God. I believed my wife was having an affair with Peyton, so I followed her down to Church Lane. Saw this chap standing at the vicarage door, and then Peyton opened it, dressed as a bishop. My wife rather likes that sort of thing.
Was your wife there?
Well, you can't have an affair with a woman if she's not there, can you?
Did you actually see her?
No, I didn't.
No. Well, what did you see, sir?
Well, not very much at all, really. The curtains were drawn, although I did think I saw a face in the bay window. And then I heard gunshots, so I panicked and I ran.
Oh, I see. And where did you run to?
Well, it was the strangest thing. I ran into the trees and I suddenly stumbled and fell. Found myself in an open grave. Gave me a hell of a shock, I can tell you.
An open grave? Yeah, I can imagine it would. It's not a good idea to lie to the police, sir. I'd like a look at this grave, if you don't mind. Well, I didn't believe Longbottom for 1 second, so I asked him to show me where this alleged open grave was. And he took me down to this wooded area in the churchyard. And sure enough, there it was, just as he'd described it. Next to it was a polished marble headstone. It looked really expensive, and yet here it was, hidden away in the bushes. Now, if you've purchased the paperwork, you can take a look at the police photograph of that gravestone. We've called it grave evidence. If you haven't purchased it yet, don't worry, you still can. It's only a few quid. Now, take a look at that gravestone and you'll notice the first of several curiosities on this case. The surname, Cheated. That's most unusual. In fact, we searched the records of everyone in England and then Great Britain and then the entire UK, and yet we couldn't find that surname anywhere. So, who was this grave intended for? Well, my DS suggested that we ask the local stonemason, see if he could throw some light on the matter, you know. So that's where we went to next. Now, in my books, he wasn't a suspect or anything. I just wanted information from him. Of course, you may think differently. Anyway, take a look at that gravestone evidence and we'll take a bit of a break here and my interview with the stonemason can kick off the next video. Next time, in the next episode, D.I. Butler reenacts his interviews with stonemason Mr. Eric Flint and character witnesses the Reverend Davinia Collar and Miss Daisy Planter. Don't miss the next Lockdown Murder Mystery.